So, I mean, chemistry, obviously, I think is awesome and really fun. And if you can figure out like the synthetic pathway to it, you could pretty much make whatever.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding, episode 138. I'm your host, Big Ron Partlow, with Dusty Hanshaw and our producer, Scott McNally. And today we're happy to have on the show the Guerrilla Chemist, Bryan Moscow. How you doing, man?
What's up, guys? How are you? How's everybody? Dusty,
you did your hair for
happy
us.
Birthday. I did. Check it out.
Ooh,
oh, whoa.
That's pretty sweet.
Damn.
I dyed it just for the show.
Okay.
Just so it
about
would look
that.
nice and good.
You know?
He did that
Yeah,
so I
Dusty
could
had a
envy the
birthday.
fact that he has hair all by himself. Like, just the fact that you have hair is one thing, but then you put designs into it's another.
Well,
Oh, it hurts my soul.
one day I'm not going to have hair, so that's why I do it now.
Right. You see the end is like in the foreseeable future. So that was like one of the last things I did with my hair was I had a mohawk.
I think I remember seeing you with a
I
mohawk.
had like a faux hawk. I had like a faux hawk for like 2 months. I was just like, I have to do it once.
Well, that's what happens, though. You're losing it everywhere else. So that's the only place you have like a strong line. So you're like, oh, no, it's a style. It's not that I'm fucking old and going bald.
Right.
It's not that.
No,
I rocked that. and
definitely
that was
not.
it. That was my grand finale. So much less grander than yours. Yours looks like you got another 10 years left too.
I'm hoping. We'll see.
Well, plus with your Guerrilla Chemistry tricks and Molecule Mondays and all that
Yeah.
stuff, maybe you can help a lot of other guys keep their hair if they watch the rest of this podcast.
Maybe that's a secret.
Okay. Well, first of all, we got to like, share, subscribe, comment.
And ring the bell. I thought you were going to leave the comment for me again. I was like, oh, shit. I was ready.
Damn.
It was a lot. It was good. Dusty.
I was. Do you see me like, oh,
You did good.
Yeah,
You
you're
went
waiting
with
for the
it.
alley-oop. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So, do that, and it helps us out a lot, obviously, the algorithms and all that stuff. So until Elon buys YouTube and puts bodybuilding podcasts on the priority list, we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way and beg you guys for engagement.
Yes.
So we did briefly, Bryan brought up, he addressed Dusty's birthday. We have to get that out of the way. Dusty, tell us, how old are you and how was your birthday? We saw there were guns, cigars, alcohol, and titties involved, which is as USA as it fucking gets. And I'm just glad that you are
It was
fucking
like
enjoying life.
it was a typical Saturday, actually. It just happened to be my birthday. I mean, all the things that you listed, I was like, also happening today. Interesting. But yes, I'm 30 again this year. I've decided. I did the 29, I told you, for a decade. So I bumped up. I've been 30 last year, 30 this year. I'm going to hold it as long as I can. And, you know how sometimes the only thing it's tricky, and I actually had this happen recently. Somebody asked my age, and I went to answer honestly, and I said it, and I was wrong.
Yeah, I've done that.
My buddy was like, "Well, you're not." I'm like, "Yes, I am." We had like an argument, and he's like, "1981, do the math." I was like, "Oh fuck, my bad." So, yeah, that's that. But it's fine. Denial is where I like to live, so it's lovely.
So
It's a
you
nice
were born
place to
in
live.
you were born in 1981.
Yes, yes,
Wow.
I was. Yeah,
You know what one of the biggest hits of the year was?
No.
Jesse's Girl by Rick Springfield.
See? I love that he's on
Fun-
his,
classic.
He's Googling away. There he goes.
We got to pull something up. We can't just let it float by.
Yeah,
He's got a
well
Rick-
done.
He's got a Rick Springfield poster in his room. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Working Class Dog. Remember the cover of that album? Working Class Dog. Had a dog with like a suit on. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was good. Okay, we got you in the house, man. I got to tell you, you and I have been friends for a while. We talk at the expos. We message back and forth. I send you a picture of something and go, "Is this good?" And you go, "Well, depends." And then there's a problem because now you give me information that I'm not smart enough to understand. And so then I have to Google, and you know how it goes. So you're one of my smartest buddies, is my point. So why don't you
Well, I
give everybody
appreciate
the give everybody the background. I know you've got.
I'm his other buddy. That doesn't say a lot. Yeah. I want to bring this down a hair before you get excited. He also sends me pictures and says, "Are they good?" But they're usually, anyways.
Yeah, they're different pictures. Dusty gets different pictures. Okay, so yeah, give us a rundown on how you came to be the Guerrilla Chemist.
So when I was in college and undergrad, I was really into bodybuilding in the early 2000s. And then I started competing in 05 and competed 05, 06, 07. And then right around then, I was really into like, how do supplements work? How do you build muscle? How does gear work? How do all these things go into bodybuilding to build muscle from a chemical standpoint? And so Patrick Arnold was big at the time, and I was reading a lot of his stuff, and I really liked how he explained things from a chemist point of view. So in 2007, I decided to go back to school for chemistry, and then I went for 3 years, finished from University of Central Florida in Orlando, go Knights, and then went to grad school at Georgia Tech and got my master's in organic and biochemistry, and was able to figure out, and from an educational standpoint, how these molecules work in the body. And it was really cool because a lot of the times you think, I have a headache, I'm going to take Tylenol and it'll go away. But what is that Tylenol really doing? Like, how is it working to take your headache away? I just thought that was cool. And then I applied that thought to creatine. How does creatine work inside your body? Why should you take it? And I just kind of spiraled into, how does anything work?
Right.
So that's where we are now.
Yeah. So you're able to explain, what receptor the Tylenol is attaching to block what thing to cause the pain to go away, right? That's how it works.
Yeah, essentially. Everything has a receptor.
Everything has a receptor. So let's start with obviously bodybuilding, putting on muscle. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you think are underrated for their role in what someone trying to put size on? Let's say you got someone who's using gear. They're not natty. Right. They're using gear. They're training hard. What do you think we should be taking that maybe we're overlooking? What's really important?
If you're taking gear, you're probably not overlooking simple things like essential amino acids, which I think is the number one thing. We talked last time about insulin mimics. I think those can really harness growth. Your body can grow through the insulin pathway, and it's connected to the mTOR pathway, so you can activate protein synthesis. Insulin, as you know, shuttles things into your muscles. It shuttles not just carbohydrates, but amino acids, and that gets into your muscle where it starts to rebuild and repair and grow, and you can create a very anabolic environment in your cell. So I'm a big fan of those insulin mimic stuff, like berberine, Genema, stuff we talked about last time, like my little product that I made.
Right. The GDA stuff.
Yeah, it's all glucose disposal agents. And I think those are underrated as far as building muscle. You can literally feel, if you take it with some quick acting carbs, you can literally feel the pump in your muscle from the carbs and the water in your cells.
And you just think that most of this stuff, obviously, one of the things that people say is, oh, well, I took it and I didn't feel a difference, immediately or whatever. But it's the long term, like taking it every workout for hundreds of workouts in a row is what you're saying is where the real possible long-term gain is, right?
Yeah, it's something you definitely have to take longer than, a month, but it gives you the benefit of shuttling all those nutrients into your muscles. So yeah, I think there's definitely a place for it in building muscle if you're doing everything else on top of that.
Is the old school one that we all put on was cinnamon. Everyone using cinnamon in their oatmeal. That was like an old school bodybuilder thing. I remember I was told that back in like the early 90s. Someone said, "Oh, make sure you put cinnamon in your oatmeal. Cinnamon's really good for your insulin."
It is
sensitivity. Like back then they were saying that, but it's funny how, it wasn't really like a written rule. It was just kind of this thing everyone did.
Yeah. The bodybuilders are usually ahead of the curve with science a lot of the times. The inner circle stuff, like this does this, or this dose of that, or I'm eating this many carbs or this much fat, and this is how my body's responding. They're usually ahead of the actual studies. But cinnamon is a really good one. I used a specific cinnamon extract in here called cinnulin, which is standardized for specific tannins that help specifically get insulin release and increase GLUT4, which is a protein that brings carbs into your cells. So yeah, cinnamon is definitely one of those things that works really well.
Interesting. Okay. So is it safe to say that, I asked you about building muscle and you went to the glucose disposal agents. Is it going to be the exact same answer when I ask you about burning fat?
Slightly. So I made a product, and to my knowledge, I was first to the market with it. It's called Cortiblock, and the product contains amodin. And amodin is a cortisol inhibitor, natural cortisol inhibitor. So one way you can store fat is if you have elevated levels of cortisol for long periods of time, just like insulin. So cortisol is it's a glucosteroid, so it is promoting fat storage. If you block the conversion of cortisone, which is inactive, into cortisol, which is the active part, then you're not getting that inflammatory response and you're not getting the storage part. So you can lose a lot of fat that way and sleep better and get lower your blood insulin levels.
So that would be kind of added to the stack.
Yeah, I there was a lot of research on this, and I'm surprised like nobody ever picked up on it. It works. It decreases cortisol by like 40 something %, which is a huge amount. And there's nothing else natural that does that. Patrick Arnold made I think it was 11 oxoandrostenediol trial or something like that. Or diol. That was a cortisol inhibitor. Do you remember that product? 11 oxo.
I don't remember specifically, but I remember that what he was doing,
So when he made all those andros, right? He made one called 11 oxo, which is a steroid that does the same thing as amodin. It blocks cortisol production. So this is the natural one.
What about natty competitors? Does this stuff become even more important for them?
Yes. If you want any kind of edge as a natural athlete, you definitely need to take things that can increase protein synthesis, increase the way that you're increasing muscle protein synthesis, whether it's mTOR, whether it's like PIK or anything like that. I made a product called Natabolic that has a bunch of testosterone boosting ingredients, including boron, which is probably the most underused ingredient in the whole industry. Boron increases free testosterone, which is what really matters at the end. Because your total, if you have a testosterone level of 1,000, but you only have like 100 that are free or something like that, like it's a very small percentage, you can't actually build the muscle because the testosterone is physically like bound to the protein. But if you have free testosterone, it can then bind to the androgen receptor and then do the work.
So does the boron inhibit the sex hormone binding globulin?
It lowers it, yes.
It lowers it. Okay. I remember when boron was like a thing, like a lot of these supplements, I think they came because of the research, but they went because of the dosing cost. Like, you know what I mean? They might say, oh, well, this works, but for it to really work, you'd have to take like grams and grams of it. And then that would just be unreasonable. And, the jar's $50 and, like a lot of the ingredients back in the day were like that. But are we able to make boron effective now? Like, what dose would you need?
It's very cheap.
It is cheap now, and it usually comes as a chelate, like boron citrate or something. And you only need like the studies I think are 6 to 9 milligrams or 10 milligrams is what I use in the product for it to really work, and it boosts your free testosterone significantly.
I do 6 in the morning, 6 at night every day, and my free testosterone is ridiculous whether I'm on or off.
Yeah, and that's great for you guys.
You take boron. Okay.
Yeah.
It's great for guys just like even on TRT, you know what I mean? Just to kind of get that edge. I agree. It's a good one.
What do you think about PS like at night in high doses for cortisol? Like, because I was thinking like 300 milligrams every night, and that seemed to make a change, but it sounds very different from how these products you're talking about.
would you say phosphatidylserine? Is that what okay.
Yeah.
So the thing with phosphatidylserine is that it's a 50% material, right? So the clinical dose is 800 milligrams, which really means you need 1,600 milligrams of material because it's a fat, right? So you can't just put it in a powder, you put it on a carrier. It works decently, but it doesn't actually inhibit cortisol production. It lowers it via a different pathway.
Okay.
I think head to head, Amodin works better to inhibit cortisol. Like people message me about sleeping better. They message me about fat loss. They message me about stress management. I have a lot of competitors take it because that very like last bit of fat to come off in your lower back or something when you're trying to get peeled. A lot of times is you're on stims, you're doing so much cardio, you're dieting, your body's in a high stress mode. This will help eliminate that stress and help you lose that fat easier.
Huh, no
nice.
kidding.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's why I was curious. I'd never even heard of that, but obviously I knew it had to be drastically stronger because, PS has been out for 1 million years. So,
and it's expensive as shit. PS. It's like, to get the real dose, like I said, 1,600 milligrams. I think, Matt was the only one that put out a real dose one, right? Matt Porter, when he had his powder, his was at 800 milligrams, I think. And it was a standalone. It was real expensive for just one product.
Right. Makes sense.
What would you say would be the top things that someone should be using for enhancing like absorption of gear? Like if you're on gear, is there anything you should be taking to make your gear more effective? Is I guess what I'm asking.
There's not a lot of research that shows like how to deplete a tolerance, I guess, if you've taken so much. I think that insulin sensitivity can help a lot in general with the way you absorb things. Specifically for gear, I don't think there is anything that would make it absorb better other than you could help push it to go to estrogen or DHT or something like that. But I don't think you can really make it bind better into the androgen receptor. There's not a lot of things like there's a lot of rumor on the internet about taking L-carnitine and it increases like androgen receptor density, but I haven't seen anything concrete about that.
Right. But it still would be a good idea to do what Dusty was doing, taking boron to help block some SHBG, because technically that's doing a little bit of the job. Right.
So boron would be something you take on or off, like Dusty said. There's have you guys heard of Turkesterone?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that I think made a comeback. It was kind of big, I don't know, 15 years ago or something. And then as like plant sterols, and then it came back and now it's like all over. But the data is limited data, but the data is actually pretty good. And your buddy, Dusty Dante, is the one that he makes a product, and he sent it to me when I was coming off of TRT and going into like trying to have a baby. He sent me his Turkesterone, and he's like, take this amount twice a day. And it was then that I saw that it really worked. If you're a natural athlete, that stuff can really help you preserve muscle and even build new muscle.
What dose would you be taking?
So I think he had a 10%, and he told me to take 2,000 milligrams a day. I used, I think I used 750 in metabolic at a higher extract, and it seemed to work pretty well with other stuff. By itself, I would say you need a lot of it though, because it's such a small amount of the actual powder. The 10% is the highest I've seen.
Wow. Okay. I got a whole list of stuff.
But it's big now. I mean, like Derek has from More Plates, More Dates has that product. I have it. It's just a lot over the internet. Like this Turkesterone. Yeah. But I do think it's valuable for sure. And I only found that out from taking it myself.
How do you feel about the post-workout window and the whole intra-workout window and all that stuff? What's your take on optimizing that? Do you micromanage that, or are you sort of, what's your view?
So I do believe in the intra workout a lot. I think that if you are working out and your blood has nutrients in it, if you're getting that blood pumping to your muscles, you can create a very anabolic environment. So if anyone's ever taken insulin during their workout and then drink an amino acid and creatine and carbs, you'll notice it. You'll put on weight really, very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I think intra workout is important. Nutrition. I made an intra workout product that had glucose, D-ribose, which is another underrated ingredient for endurance and building muscle. Creatine, all these things you can take while you're working out. And then because all your blood is essentially going to your muscles, if you maximize like your insulin sensitivity and insulin spike, you can deliver all of that to your muscle while you're working out. Right. And bodybuilders have done that with insulin. As far as post-workout, there's some conflicting data on if there's a such thing as an anabolic window. Some studies say you need protein for sure within 2 hours. Some studies say you need carbs and protein. The studies that I've read say as long as you take essential amino acids, that's what really matters. It's not so much carbs or protein. It's getting essential amino acids in there to help spike protein synthesis and recovery. So I don't think there's a anabolic window per se, but I do think that the quicker acting amino acids you need to get in your system right after you train.
I feel like the question that always comes to play in my head since like the very beginning, I got into the industry in like 2000, and it was all about the quickest way to get aminos in your system. Remember back then we used to push down people's throats like you got to do a whey isolate after you train, but then before bed you got to do a casein. Now during the day you got to do a blend, and it was this whole thing. And I always felt like, well, wouldn't it be faster to just take EAAs? Like remove digestion essentially and just have this, readily available thing that my body just goes, oh, I know what that is, and starts using it. So that was always my take. I never feel good after training, especially like legs or back, but I can drink 20 grams of EAAs, no problem, driving home, and then wait 2 hours before I eat, and I just feel better. So I'm kind of like the opposite of you. I had to just go with I don't know what science says, but I'll puke if I eat this food right now. So we'll just try this, and it worked. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm the same. I don't have a big appetite after I train, especially like you said, back and legs. I could puke if I drink a shake or a whole meal. Amino acids I can drink very, very quickly and easily, especially if they are flavored nicely.
Yep.
Like this one.
There you go.
Play, sir.
But I agree with you. Like I said, bodybuilders are usually ahead of the curve, right? So I would not I had to force feed myself to eat, and then you feel like shit for hours, with your food just sitting right here versus, like you said, essentially taking the digestion part out, and that stuff just goes into your blood and right into your muscles.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think is the best way to approach appetite enhancement? Is there any molecule Mondays that apply?
Yes, walk. Lots of walking.
I don't want to hear you tell me to do cardio. I want there to be a magic pill or drug. You're the Guerrilla Chemist. You're
sounding so American right now, Ron. I need there to be a pill for this.
Yes.
I haven't really researched appetite, increasing appetite. There was a product years ago called Engorge, if I remember correctly. Do you remember that one, Dusty?
Yep. Yeah.
I think people swore by it, but I personally have never taken anything to increase appetite. I find the more I train, the more I can eat, and like cardio, I know you don't want to hear that. So But
I'm
off,
me personally, I'm fine.
I
was asking for a friend.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I can't think of something that directly stimulates appetite. I'm sure there is something that if I did a little research, I can give you some information on. I just can't think of it at the moment.
What about sleep? I'm just hitting all the bodybuilding stuff: the muscle, fat loss, appetite, sleep. You want to hear?
So sleep is a big one, and I personally have very hard time falling asleep and staying asleep. So I researched a lot of things that help with sleep, and I came out with a product called Sleep. And some of the heavy hitters are magnolia bark extract, which has these two compounds in it, hananochiol and magnolol, which are natural benzodiazepine receptor modulators. So like a natural Xanax type of thing. Right. So let me backtrack. The way I put together a product in my head is there a pharmaceutical that does this? How does the pharmaceutical work? The pathway, the mechanism of action, and is there a natural supplement or molecule that does the same thing? And so I did a deep dive into how like benzodiazepines work and how the receptor works, and then found a bunch of random molecules that act on the same receptor. Like there is a plant in Africa that I researched that had like 20 something compounds that haven't been discovered before. And this was, I think the paper was published in like 2019 or something. And I used that extract because it had really good data for putting people to sleep and then staying asleep. So I think that sleep is super critical to growth, obviously, because that's when you grow. And it's one of those overlooked things that nobody thinks about, but until you have sleep problems, like I couldn't fall asleep. So I was trying whatever I could to what could make me go to sleep and stay asleep.
Mm-hmm. I've got one. I got to ask you this one. This was actually a friend of mine, not joking.
Okay.
For a friend.
Actually,
he said, ask him about cannabinoids and training and recovery. Is there any negative, positive, or is it just kind of neutral, or is there anything to support, cannabinoids helping with recovery, or is it all just our perception?
No, I made a post about this actually a while ago, that there's research to suggest that it can help with recovery after training. I think they did cardiovascular training, not exercise training. Excuse me. But it was brought in the study. I believe it showed it helped. I don't remember if it was VO2 max or it was another mechanism, but it helped, aided in recovery for, after training. So there is data to back that up. It's not just I want to smoke weed after I train. Yeah. And I think, and I think it's helping.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I think, yeah. I want to smoke weed.
There's
between
a bunch
sets.
There's a lot of different cannabinoids though. It's not just THC. That's a huge industry now, is all the like CBG, CBN, CBD, CBDA, like a bunch of different cannabinoids that are in marijuana that have different effects in the body. They're just in such small amounts that they're hard to extract. Right. I have a buddy who's is in that industry, and I worked with him a little bit trying to help extract stuff, because it's very hard to separate because the molecules are so similar in structure, and they're very fatty. They're all fat soluble, so they're hard to separate on what we call columns, which are how we separate molecules in the lab, based on like it's sticking or not sticking kind of thing. Crazy. So yeah, there's a lot of cannabinoids out there that for like nootropic wise, for recovery wise, for anxiety. There's a lot of different things you can use them for. CBD, I think, works really well. I actually got CBD for my sister when she had breast cancer, and gave her a blend of THC and CBD, and it helped her a lot with not just anti-nausea, but actually feeling better and having energy. Off the subject of training, but I think CBD has a lot of benefits, as well as all the different cannabinoids on your health.
What do you take pre-workout?
I take my pre-workout from Chemix.
Okay.
So
what's in it?
Okay. When I was making that, I was looking at a lot of different stimulants. And then most people just throw a lot of stims in something, but I wanted to find a combination that I liked, that worked well. And how do you boost that to work better? Because some stimulants like caffeine, they just increase your central nervous system. Some stimulants like ephedrine increase dopamine and serotonin. And so things that are similar in structure to that, like hygenamine is one of my favorite ones. I use that. I use synephrine, and those things cause your body to release dopamine and serotonin, which make you feel good. So I was thinking, what else can you put in there to enhance that? Because I think if you have a lot of dopamine and serotonin, you feel good, you can work out longer, you're in an elevated mood, that kind of thing. So a big ingredient that I came across is called Kanna. Have you ever heard of that before?
No.
So Kanna is this leaf that grows in South Africa, and they chew it, and it gives you like a kind of a buzz. It's euphoric, but it basically increases serotonin and dopamine, and it works very, very well with stimulants like hygenamine and synephrine and all those beta-2 agonists. So almost by accident, I was taking that at a dose of 1,000 milligrams, which is kind of like the dose you chew in the leaf. And I mix that with caffeine and then hygenamine, and then it kind of gave you this like light went off, like, whoa, this is a really good feeling. Like I feel good in the gym. I have my headphones on, like everything is, tunnel vision. So I added that to the pre-workout, and I really like Kanna a lot. I think it can bring out there's no crash from it, because a lot of pre-workouts, you go up and then you crash down.
Yeah.
This smooths everything out. Your dopamine and serotonin are elevated. You feel good. And then as far as performance, I like l-citrulline a lot. I think that's like a proven ingredient. As people know, I hate beta-alanine. I think it's the worst ever. I do not like the paresthesia, the tingles, and I do not think it does anything. You need 180 grams of it in order to increase carnosine by 20%. So you need to take a lot. That 6.4 gram dose, you need to take that 28 days in a row.
Dang.
In order to get that 180 grams.
You know what? I've heard that, and I still can't stop taking it myself and I think it's like a Pavlov's dog thing. I like that tingle, so I feel it, and I'm like, all right, now I know, like, I'm gonna have a good workout. And if I don't take it and I don't get that, then I don't know. But if I take that, I'm like, yeah, okay, I feel that kind of like burning in my neck or whatever. I'm like, now I know it's gonna be a good workout. Although I've heard that too, that it might not be that beneficial. I'll take it at like 4.5, 5 grams, something like that.
My ears are burning just thinking of that.
Do you think that it matters what supplement Scott takes if he trains wearing Crocs? Doesn't that ruin all of it?
They don't like Crocs.
There's no gains. There's no gains.
I feel like that shuts off even your products, from what I understand.
Yeah,
it's clinically backed that it doesn't. Crocs inhibit all of it from working.
I knew it. Sorry, Scott.
It's all right.
No,
up the gear.
That orange flannel, though, is super anabolic. I like that.
It balances out the Crocs. Plus,
it does.
It's a little more trend. It all works.
Tell us.
Sorry.
Yeah. What? So you mentioned L-citrulline, but you didn't mention citrulline malate.
Right.
So do you see like a huge difference there? Are you anti one or?
No, I'm not anti. It just citrulline is the active. So malate is the base of malic acid, and malic acid is used in flavoring. So you get a lot of malic acid anyways. And malate is one of the intermediates in the Krebs cycle, so you can get energy from it. But it's not causing any vasodilation, and that's all citrulline. which converts to arginine, which converts to nitric oxide. So I don't think that you need to take citrulline malate. I think that it's not helping with vasodilation, and you're trying to get that at least 6 grams of the base citrulline. So if someone gives you malate, that takes like 30% of the weight roughly from citrulline into malic acid, which is a lot. So I personally don't like it, but it's not that it's bad. It's just you get a lot of malic acid anyways that you don't even know about.
Mm-hmm. I never even thought of that. I never even thought that. So theoretically, you need some malic acid to do this, help with this job, but you're just saying that you don't really need it that badly. Well, because you're already getting plenty. Well,
your body makes malate in the Krebs cycle. So it's like one of the metabolites for making energy, but you get a lot of it just by the flavoring in your supplements. And I mean, in food too, but you get a lot of it already. So if your citrulline malate is usually around 8 grams to get about 6 grams of citrulline, that's 2 grams of malic acid plus usually at least a gram or something else for flavoring. It's just a lot. It's a lot of acidity, but and there is no actual chemically bound citrulline and malate. The companies just take malic acid and take l-citrulline and mix it together.
No kidding. Huh.
Yeah, there is no chemically bound citrulline malate.
Interesting. Oh, okay. See the little details.
So you can make your own.
Scott. See, I didn't know that Crocs inhibited testosterone absorption
significantly,
and I didn't know that we already got more malate than we needed. Stuff like that. I'm telling you.
I have a selfish question I want to throw in here. So I have a lot of clients who, like me, just have small acid issues. And small enough that you don't even really think about it, right? So it's like, oh, take a Pepsid, do this. And Scott actually introduced me to betaine HCl and DGL. Can you kind of break down for people? Because I've just literally been copy pasting what Scott sent me to people, and they're getting great results with it. And so did I. But
good.
How exactly do those work? And is there something better that people should be using as well? Because I think a lot of people don't realize, like when I got almost died last year, the reason was actually that small amount of acid all the time that I thought nothing of actually had worn away at my esophagus where it was really thin, so that a piece of food was enough to tear it. So I don't think a lot of people realize how bad that is over 15 years.
It's really bad. It could cause Barrett's esophagitis, which is when you're when it's so acidic that your cells actually it's called metaplasia, like the cells of your esophagus and your stomach can intertwine, which is precancerous. And you said it's acidic, it can burn your esophagus, and a whole bunch of bad stuff can happen. What did you say, DGL?
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
Oh, I forget. I can look it up. But
look it up.
We can talk about, Victoria was the one who got me into DGL. It's not even something that I use, but I think it related to licorice maybe. But the other one was HCl.
Is it like deglycer? I'd have to hear the name. The betaine HCl, though, I've had anecdotal evidence of that helping with a lot with like GERD and acid buildup. I think, which is weird because it's just the HCl. I don't think betaine anhydrous does the same thing.
Right.
I think you have to have the HCl possibly for absorption. Betaine is like a positively charged molecule. So if you neutralize it by making it the HCl, then it possibly has better absorption. I don't know the exact pathway by which it blocks acid, but I do know that I've read the same thing, that it does help. I don't know if it works as a natural like proton pump inhibitor. I'd have to look into that. But structurally, it does not look like a proton pump inhibitor, though. Those look chemically, those look different.
Right.
And what's DGL, Scott?
All right, I'm gonna pull this up here so that you can. That way I don't have to.
I'm just laughing. I'm just laughing as he casually explained how molecules should look.
So here's some from Vitacost.
That doesn't look like a proton pump inhibitor, and I'm like, of course it doesn't.
I don't know how to say that word. You can say that, I'm sure. I don't know how to say that word.
Deglycerinated D. So D means removed. Okay. So glycerinate is it's an acid that's found in licorice root that helps with actually cortisol, but that is taking it out. So because the glycerinate, I think, is acidic. I think that's why, or not acidic. Yeah, I think that part is acidic, so that when you take that out, the licorice actually can help you with digestion and with help with act like it's the natural proton pump inhibitor. I think, because I've heard of that compound, and I know that you can actually use the one that has the glycerinate in it for other purposes, but I know that one they do make specifically. I think it's for digestion, but I believe it helps, like you said, with heartburn. Is that what it helps you with?
Yeah, because that's, I mean, basically what the research, and I'm always afraid when I say research online because it's train wreck. But what I kind of came up with was that it soothes stomach acid without blocking it, because a lot of people don't realize by constantly popping things like Tums and stuff like that, you're kind of screwing yourself because you need stomach acids, you know? So it basically is supposed to soothe without blocking, and that allows the gut also to recover more or less. Is that kind of what you got to it, Scott?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just interesting. So I wanted to see if there was something you knew, because I can tell a difference. And like I said, this is I think it's interesting, like you said, with bodybuilders, you do enough homework to go, well, it's not going to kill me. Let's pop some of those for a while and see.
Yeah.
And now it's like, literally just, it's a daily thing, just because I'm like, okay, I haven't needed something like a Tums or anything like that in a month and a half. So something's happening.
That's cool.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that the pH of your body, like the acidity versus the basicity of it, is super regulated. Your stomach, it will stay acidic all the time. Like you can't, no matter how much Tums you take, like that helps like with the free acid in your stomach. But in order to digest food, it has to be at a certain level of acidity, which is called pH. Right. And like those pH balanced waters, they don't do anything. You can't change the pH of your system at all. It's so regulated. It's so tightly regulated that you have to be within like 0.1 of your pH range or so. If you change it by 0.1, that could be like catastrophic to everything you do.
No kidding.
So your body naturally regulates a lot of its pH, but if the way that the acid buildup happens, like you're talking about, and how I have it, is from constantly taking in things that are super acidic. I used to drink a lot of Diet Mountain Dew when I was younger for the caffeine and stuff, and that I think was a big contributor to my acid reflux, just from having all of that citric acid and stuff all the time. I think that just constantly builds up, and then the flap that covers where your acid from going over just gets deteriorated. But yeah, don't buy pH water. It doesn't do anything.
I'm really glad that your knowledge and my cheapness agree. I've never $5 for fucking water. Kiss my ass.
I've never ever believed in any of the pH stuff.
Yeah.
I've always just thought your stomach's a vat of acid. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, you have a lot of hydrochloric acid in your stomach. That's just how you have to break down foods. That's how it works from like a chemistry standpoint. So you can't really change the pH. What you can do is change the pH of your urine if you're interested in that. That's what that water does.
So that's how they can repetitively sell it. See, look.
So in a way, you're buying expensive piss.
Pretty much, yeah. Your piss is going to be a much higher pH than normal.
That's amazing.
Okay, does that benefit my dick at all? Like, is there any like long term? Is there any sort of like longevity issue here? Is it going to have acid reflux at one point?
From what I read, you have to. it works only if you wear Crocs.
Oh, okay.
But that's because no one's interested in your dick at that point anyway. So
Right.
Yeah. Well, he's married now, so
I don't have to worry about that. I wear Crocs, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm married. It's good.
It's so
In fact, she bought the Crocs for me. So
you know what?
well,
that
that's
is,
how
Scott,
they end
right?
it.
yeah,
That's how they end it. They tell you it's over with.
That's how they block other women. Now I
that's what
see
it
what's
is.
happening.
Wear these. Wear these.
No,
You
I
look
love
really
your new
good with
haircut.
those
It's great.
Crocs on. Yeah.
Can I ask Dusty a question?
Oh shit! Shoot, we're going basics.
Basics. How did you like training with Dante when he first told you and he did his dog crap training?
I loved it. I mean, it was very opposite of anything I had done at the time.
Yeah.
But you know, again, it was one of the. I love talking to someone like you because we're literally the opposite. Like, I see a result and I'm like, I don't give a shit why that happens. Just make it happen to me. So, like, I saw back in the day, I saw Justin Harris's pictures when he was doing the USAs, and I had seen his progression online, and I'm like, I have to do whatever he's doing. Because I dug into Dante.
Fast.
And I dug into Dante
so
deep
strong.
enough to see that there were 10 of him. Like, and they all had their muscle looked the same, like just dense and thick.
Dense,
and,
yeah.
You know, and I'm like, all right. And I've known since the beginning of this insanity that I decided to do bodybuilding that I wasn't made for it. So I was like, I gotta do something to hide this ugly mess. So I thought dense muscle would do it, but it was phenomenal. But what's crazy is, I mean, I went and trained with Dante.
Just made it worse.
Yeah, just bigger. It's a bigger mess. It's like it's like if you get your kid a room and it's dirty, and you're like, well, if I get him a bigger room, it'll be fine. But you forget you just bought him more toys. It's fucked again. But anyways, I trained with him again like 2 years ago, and he has new stuff. I mean, he doesn't stop.
No.
I mean, I learned. I mean, my clients love when I go see him because I come home with a bag of tricks that's all brand new, and are drastic. I mean, weird. One thing that he's definitely altered for me now is, as much as I'm all about the basics, you do reach a point where to grow, if I was still trying to grow, to continue to do that, you kind of have to get weird with stuff because you're not really going to get much stronger at this point. You're not fixing holes in your diet or things like that. So you got to kind of find a way to shock the body differently. And he showed me some stuff that I was just like, and now I'm doing adductors off of a standing leg curl, which I always thought was the most useless piece of equipment in the gym. Now I know what it's for. It's for adductors.
Dante's a genius, and
yes,
I love talking with him about everything. He and I talked a lot when I came off HRT and was doing fertility protocols, which I'm still doing. Mm-hmm. But he gave me a lot of advice about how to take fertility meds and how to keep muscle on and how to train when your testosterone's low. He's one of those guys that he's super innovative. He tries everything out. He's not afraid to experiment with stuff, and he logs stuff, so he knows like this works. And I think I heard about dog crap training right before the article with you and him doing it. I think it was just some random thing, and I loved it when I did it. Like when I used to lift heavy and stuff, I loved doing that training. It was such a change from the normal bodybuilding routine, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think that's what I liked about it once I got into it, is realizing that before he brought that out, everyone was training like 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it's just funny that some guy that no one knew just randomly was like, well, that's cool, but have you ever tried this? And everyone, I think because of how he writes, you kind of quickly realize like, all right, I think this guy knows a lot more than me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot, you know?
Yeah. He definitely is super intelligent and knows when he tells you to do something, he knows everything about it.
Yeah.
From every angle.
The only shitty thing about Dante is that he doesn't really want to do podcasts.
Right? I know. Right?
We had him ready to do the show.
Him.
I mean, because I told them, I was like, of course he'll do a podcast. Just call him. And he's like,
and he
sure.
said no.
No, he said yes. And then he hit me up and he goes, I hate doing these. And he's like, he doesn't like this kind of, like, I mean, for whatever reason. And I was like, well, you don't have to do it. So he's like, yeah. But then what's funny is then when I go train with him, we film the whole thing. And he loves it. But I think it's because in that arena, he's just doing what he does. He just doesn't like this setting. And I was like, well, then don't ever do it.
Yeah.
You'll stay permanently a guy that people think doesn't exist. I don't know. These guys have heard this before, but when I first started working with him, my wife at the time and I actually went out to stay with him to do a weekend of training and stuff. And at the time they had the message boards and his picture was just a tricep in kind of a dark room. And so he answers his front door and I'm like, hey, what's up? And I had met him. So I introduced him to Evian and he turns around and she goes, I thought he was black. Like, he is so invisible to the world that she had no idea who he was. I'm like, why did you think that? She goes, his arm is black in the picture. I'm like, that's how underground you are.
Right.
He is out there, but he doesn't. You wouldn't find him unless you knew somebody told you about him. Like he doesn't self-promote or anything like that. And I like that a lot about him. That especially since you know him, like he's very cool. He's very down to earth. Some people love the limelight, and that's not him. As far as he doesn't, he's just like putting out information, and he'll put it out super secretively. He'll just make a post. He made an awesome post, and I reposted it, and then it just brought a bunch of like idiot trolls and didn't understand what we were saying, so we had to take it down. Okay. But it was really, really interesting research about melatonin.
Yeah.
Remember that post?
Yeah.
The high dose melatonin.
Yeah.
Anything that goes out for him, chances are it's already been. Ron has seen it. I've seen it. I just do it. I'm like, he sends me an email like, which place? I just order immediately. Start bombing a bottle down my throat. I'm like, now what? It was crazy how well it worked. Did you try it? Because you had a sleeping problem.
I haven't tried it yet. I have a bottle of like 60 milligram melatonin or something. Mm-hmm. So I want to try it.
You have to. And the thing is, you do wake up a little groggy, but I've been using sleep aids for so long that I think that doesn't really affect. Like, that Somatamax. You ever heard of that by High Tech?
Yeah.
I do 2 scoops of that every night before bed, and I'm fine. I wake up the next day, 5 hours later, ready to go. So I was a little groggy, but I think it's definitely something people could get into. I think it's a little before they're ready to read about it.
Yeah.
Like, because I saw your guys' posts get annihilated. I was like, oh, God.
I just think people didn't understand what he was trying to say. And then it just went retarded. So he asked me if I would take it down. I was like, of course, obviously. Like, I just thought it was something really cool that he talked about. Mm-hmm. And that's cool that you did it, too, because you noticed yourself get leaner from it.
I mean, you know what's crazy? And I want to say yes, but I don't know what's happened over the last couple of years. But I don't get fat like I used to anymore. So I guess I got older and my metabolism woke up. So it's harder to notice, But I did. Okay. The big thing I noticed, though, was the actual sleep. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd be gone, and then I don't dream usually. And I would wake up, and I'm like, okay, that was fucked up. Like, the first few nights, I was like, I'm having like dreams like I'm on something. So that was interesting. But of course I was like, well, does that mean better REM? I mean, what is that, in my head? So I looked at that as a good sign, whether it meant anything or not.
Sometimes they're related. Sometimes it's just brain activity. It doesn't necessarily mean you're in REM. Right. Sorry to burst your bubble.
Well, the shark that was in my dream talking to me said it was REM. So there you go.
Well, he might know.
Well, and he was not wearing Crocs.
All right. We gotta go down the path. What's the best cycle?
Oh God.
What's the best cycle? Do you think do you got to have a testosterone and then like something from the DHT family and then something from the nandrolone family to cover all your bases? Or you kind of what do you think? You're setting up the best cycle.
So without giving away like a specific one, I will say that I am a huge fan of what, like, taking everything has to do with a half-life, right? So when
Yes.
people throw out random, like, take 400 milligrams of this and 500 milligrams of Deca. Deca and Test have two different half-lives, so they're never overlapping at the same time. So it's stupid if you take them on the same day. The way I make cycles for people, in theory, is that if I were going to, is I like using the shorter acting stuff, and I start with longer acting things so they get the nice, like, long peak. And then as those are peaking, you start hitting with the faster acting stuff. So you maximize the area under the curve that all the compounds are hitting directly. So here's an example. If you start out with, like, nandrolone, like Deca, a long acting nandrolone, that can last, and you do a shot, like a small amount, 50 milligrams or something every day for 10 days, you'll slowly start to build up this huge curve. And because of its half-life being almost 14 days from the day you shoot the first shot to 14 days later, it's still active. So each day you're kind of extending how long it's in your system. And then after those 10 days, you hit something like propionate or something quick. And that way you're rapidly increasing your testosterone levels even while your androgen levels are already peaked. Yeah. So you're getting like a true synergy instead of just taking a couple things together. And to Ron's point, I really do like DHT stuff, Primo, Masterone. I think those two are really good. And I think that they help you on the anabolic side a lot more than testosterone does. Because, you know, your androgen receptor, DHT binds something like 5 times the affinity versus testosterone. So, like, the sex drive for sure will be higher on something with DHT in it versus just testosterone. But I think the anabolic part is critical. So for, like, I look at cycles that someone like Rich Piana puts out, and I'm like, oh God, please don't have people do this. You know, like, I like how he just throws information out there, but I don't like to tell people doses of stuff because of that reason, because someone is going to do something crazy. But I think if you always start with the lowest viable dose, right? So if you're growing on 300 milligrams of test, why are you going to do 750? For what's the purpose? I like short acting stuff to rapidly increase testosterone and your androgen levels. And I like layering everything because I think that works the best as far as shorter periods. You get less side effects and you're not shut down as long. So, like, your body, as you guys know, after about 8 weeks or so is when you kind of start to shut down and you kind of get a lot of side effects. So if you do shorter cycles, like 6-7 weeks, but you really maximize, like, doing something every day, very small amounts, but every day, and different compounds that you can time out so that the half-lives all kind of peak around the same time. I think that's more effective than doing like a 16-week, I don't know, 750 test, 400 EQ, 400 nanolone, something like that. I think it's way more effective to do smaller daily doses. And I think Dante, and I don't want to speak for him, we've talked about it. I think he would agree with the short stuff. And he also put me onto the sub-Q stuff. I don't know if you've done that, which works really well.
So. Yeah, the sub-Q on, like, that's how I do all my TRT is, you know, my 200 divided by 7 every day.
Yep. I think that's the way to go for sure.
I just started that. I'm like 10 days in now, and I think I like it. I was getting some weird side effects like libido stuff, and I got to the point, like, I got my labs and everything looked normal, so I'm like, I don't know how to fix this. So I took like a good 2 weeks off of everything. I just kind of like let my levels, everything come down. I'm like, okay, now I'm good. And I started back up. And now for the first time, I'm going sub Q, and it seems to be good. It's like maybe 10, 14 days in now. So
I just haven't bothered. I just take my 1 mil. I just take my 1 mil of N and theta a week, and I feel like $1 million. And every time I get blood work, my test is like, you know, above high normal by a few points.
Yeah, don't change what's working then, you know?
Right.
I don't know, but what's the half-life on test N and theta? Isn't it like 10 days?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Around that, yeah.
So after like 3 weeks on it, wouldn't you kind of just always be generally sort of like up in, you know what I mean? Aren't you kind of always kind of topped up after 3 weeks on it?
Yeah, that's for, at an HRT dose when we're kind of stabilized.
Yeah.
If you're talking about like cycling, that's different.
Right.
So Sustanon, which has 4 compounds in it, was made to shoot like once a month.
Right.
So because it lasts, one of the esters I think lasts like 28 days or something like that. So
So if you're using Sustanon for TRT, you'd take literally a shot a month.
Right. And or if you're doing a cycle, you can do a small bit every day, and you stop pinning after like 5 weeks, and then the next 6 weeks you'll have elevated testosterone. And
you're still on Sustanon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's kind of like
the magic that I got into like 10 years ago was just the realization, back when everyone was doing a lot of anti-estrogen, like things, and they were doing it daily. And I remember just thinking, well, if I'm only taking 1 shot a week, but then I'm taking that every day, my levels are kind of all over the place. You know what I mean? And that's where I got interested in the sub-Q, because it became in a daily dosings, because I'm like, well, does that make sense? Because I essentially have a moving target. If you're trying to keep your estradiol in a certain area, your test in a certain area, and one of them is getting hit every day and one's getting hit once a week, it just seemed a little odd. And actually a doctor I had at the time, we just kind of played science with me when I was doing TRT, and I was just doing blood work like constantly to see what would happen. And it was cool. You could actually get to a point where I could have my estradiol right where I felt best, testosterone right where I felt best, in perfect dosage, and just run. Now, granted, they're compounding exactly what I need on the estradiol side, but it was fun. I mean, you could feel phenomenal.
my main concern is I forget to take shots as it is.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm saying. It's not a you thing. It's a me thing. It's not that I think there's a problem with the theory. I've been saying it's not reasonable for me to actually remember to take a shot every day. Like once, and there's like lots of times I'm like, oh shit, I haven't taken a shot for 10 days. I'm gonna take a shot. Like if I'm supposed to do it daily, it might get worse than that. I don't know.
You
brush your teeth, you take your shot. That's how you do it. Brush your teeth, take your shot.
But I can't go anywhere.
I've got something I've been kind of wanting to ask. It's something I was thinking since we had you on last time. Out of anybody that we've ever had on the podcast, I've never had the opportunity to talk to somebody that can actually make shit in a lab. Like people who can literally do chemistry. And, so we can talk to people about all this other stuff about how supplements work and all that. But man, I would love to hear anything really about like making shit, synthesizing things. Can you share any kind of stories, anything like that about actually having synthesized something, made something in a lab? Because that's just fascinating to me.
I can give 2 examples. One is allegedly and fictitious.
That's the best kind. That's the best kind of example.
Yeah, a theoretical example would be great.
So theoretically, you can make certain compounds very simply that you don't need to run a test on to see what they are. There's a lot of ways to identify if you mix these things together and you come up with some white powder. How do you know what it is? There's a lot of different analytical techniques. When you are at a university, all those instruments are flagged for things that are drugs or even precursors to drugs. So say you're trying to make Adderall, which is pretty simple to make from the right starting material. If you were to test it, it would show up a flag and you'd be expelled. Like I think they told me when I went to school, like a few years before that, some kids were trying to make Adderall and they got in trouble because the instrument signal went off and it showed that it has a chemical signature of an illicit drug.
Huh, no kidding.
Yeah, so there's one that you can make without doing those tests. It's a pretty simple reaction. I'm sure people have done it at home. That was readily available, and that's one theory. The practical one is when I was in grad school, my project was on SARMs, but this is before SARMs were like a thing. This was they were using like bicalutamide, which is an anti-androgen, using the molecule of like bicalutamide, and then we would attach a molecule that has anti-cancer activity.
Okay.
So the reason we used bicalutamide is because it's an androgen receptor. So we would take something. So my lab instructor, my PI, he said it like this: you have the homing device, which is like the bicalutamide structure because it's going to home right in on the androgen receptor.
Yeah.
And then you have the warhead, which is the anti-cancer activity part of the drug, and then you chain them together with just carbon molecules. So you have different lengths of carbon chains, and so we had to make the bicalutamide structure and then make different derivatives of it. And so that was pretty cool. Like as far as making something that was a SARM essentially.
That's crazy. That's so something that was an anti-androgen, you could use that because you know that that's going to attach to the androgen receptor. And then you could like connect something else to it that you want it to do once it gets there.
So it's like hitching a ride, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like a Z-Pak, like a azithromycin. And
Yeah.
That accumulates in your lungs when it's metabolized. So we use that and attached our anti-cancer drugs to that for lung cancer application.
No kidding.
That's awesome. So, chemistry, obviously, I think is awesome and really fun. And if you can figure out like the synthetic pathway to it, you could pretty much make whatever. A lot of stuff, like you see crazy molecules out there. When I was in school, and there were some reactions that are real quick, and there's some reactions that took me 70 hours. So you just set it and they come back in 3 days.
That's
how accurate was Breaking Bad?
It wouldn't be blue. There would be nothing in that would be blue. Like no matter how pure it is, there's no blue. Right. But as far as
added a little blue, like just a little
food coloring,
little smudge blue.
You can.
I'm like the salt guy.
I'm sure somebody did that. Like I'm 100% positive
especially
somebody after the show.
Yeah,
just a little,
But as far as like the chemicals they talked about, that's what you use, like phosphine or red phosphorus, and the N-methylamine that's one way to make meth, because like that's one of the easiest ways to make meth is using that, and like acetylphenone, maybe those two.
That's
crazy.
Wild.
Yeah, I love that.
Meth is. Think about this. People can make meth in like. Have you ever seen in like shaker bottles? Have you ever heard about this?
Yeah.
Like people, they take like a lithium battery and something else, and they pseudoephedrine, and they shake it up, and it makes meth, and then it explodes.
Yeah.
But I guess meth is a pretty simple molecule to make if somebody can make it in a can like that.
Yeah, I had wanted to ask about the chemistry stuff because I've seen it in other worlds outside of bodybuilding, like on Vice, like the Vice TV shows, where I've seen people that are trying to create like new structures, like things that are like MDMA, but they're different, all these different,
research chemicals.
Yeah. All that stuff, it's amazing. I guess I don't know, the possibilities, and I feel like people are really exploring that in like recreational drugs, but I feel it's maybe could that be explored more in bodybuilding, I wonder?
So yes, really quickly to go back to what you're saying. So like a big thing in street drugs is like fluoro-Xanax, like they add a fluorine to it, and it increases its effects by like 50% or 70% or something. Like add fluorine does a lot of weird chemistry in the body, but specifically if you look at research chemicals, you'll see a lot of things that have fluorine atoms added to them.
What's the abbreviation for that?
F.
Because I've seen
just
like
F.
FL modafinil. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
Fluoromodafinil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It increases hydrophobicity, which means it can get across your blood-brain barrier more easily, and it usually increases binding affinity because fluorines are very electronegative. So if there's a metal or something in the binding site, then the fluorine will really bring itself to there and make the molecule bind even tighter, which means you need less of it to have the effect.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in bodybuilding, some of the more anabolic things are different derivatives of, essentially all steroids are just tweaked a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You have a double bond here, you add another double bond. Like the only difference between equipoise and D-ball is the double bond between carbons like 1 and 2. So I think that there are some different analogs to compounds for bodybuilding purposes, but I've seen it more in the recreational side of things.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more money there, you know.
I was gonna say that's all I can think of the whole time. I'm like, because I know where the money comes faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the nootropic, the shrooms, all that stuff? Like what there's all these products now I see, like, shroom this and shroom that. Which ones are actually gonna get me high?
I love how Ron goes with the
Just
question.
cut straight to it.
No.
I got cognitive enhancement is nice, but which ones are like going to make things a little funner than they're supposed to be?
So psilocybin obviously is the one that works the best. Releases tons of serotonin, which is why it helps with mood and PTSD and stuff like that. But you can microdose that to instead of taking like antidepressants, you could take small amounts of that to boost your serotonin levels every day, which is what a lot of people do. Some people think that if you do a big reset, like people that take ayahuasca or something like that, they feel better a few days after that and overall, because it does like a giant reset on your brain. I haven't done that personally, but I think that as far as supplements goes, the way you can make you at least euphoric is like my product Nootropic has like that Kanna we were talking about. It has ivy leaf extract, which is something that prevents the breakdown of serotonin and dopamine. Things that boost all of those levels will make you at least euphoric, not necessarily high, but at least in a really good mood based on sending your body serotonin and dopamine.
Right. What would be what kind of dose would someone need to microdose psilocybin for depression purposes? Like, what are they like? They're making like legal products now that are all labeled as shrooms, but do any of them have psilocybin actually in them in the States? No,
only they're doing pharmaceutical trials on psilocybin for for stress and post-traumatic stress disorder and depression, but there's nothing over the counter that would have psilocybin in it now.
Because I've been given products up here that have psilocybin in them, but I'm wondering if they're even like, if it's just that no one cares, so they're just making them.
I mean, in Canada or in
Canada, like it's not legal, but they're just making them. I haven't even looked it up, but I'm just wondering what dose, like,
I believe a starting point is around 200 milligrams of of like ground up mushroom, which I think is only like 20 milligrams or something of actual psilocybin, something like that.
Right. Okay. That's what these are. They're 200. So,
okay.
I just haven't taken any yet. Cause I'm like, I don't know. How many are you going to need?
Take it on the show one day.
Yeah. You're not going to know unless you experiment, Ron.
Exactly. How it's done.
Oh man. So, yeah, there you go. So what do you see as the future looking ahead? What do you have? What are your plans? Is there a project that you're really excited about, or?
I have a lot of things that I like researching. I'm really interested in like nootropic stuff, brain enhancement, and how that can go into bodybuilding and everyday life, really. But I'm really into manipulating dopamine and serotonin. There's a lot of cool things that are natural anabolics that I'm looking into that don't affect your testosterone. They just turn on the genes that build muscle. So there's always cool stuff that I'm working on. I don't want to give anything away yet, but I always have samples at home of the random things to try. So I always have something.
Here's a question for you. Do you think bodybuilding technology and chemistry will ever leave the steroid behind? Move past the steroid?
maybe if because SARMs are nowhere near what they're supposed to be. SARMs are supposed to be just a complete anabolic, no androgenic effects, right? Where no science isn't there yet. There's all the SARMs that are out right now. If you look at the studies, show that they decrease your LH, FSH, stuff like that. So we haven't found something that is a completely anabolic, but they're getting close. I think one day that those could be used for the anabolic purposes of steroids, like in burn victims or in AIDS patients or people with like cachexia, cancer. I think that SARMs have an application there. And if something builds muscle, bodybuilders will find it, right? Like that's just kind of how it goes. That is a fact. So that's kind of where I see the industry going. If they perfect SARMs more, they possibly could have lower side effects and be just a pure anabolic.
Right. Okay. Well, I've got a million things I could ask you about, man. We could talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. We'd love to have you on again because, like, I mean,
absolutely.
You know, we just did over an hour in the list of stuff. I've got a new list now. So
okay.
I want to bring you back and try to get the secret pills, you know?
He's holding out. He's holding out.
I'll have to I'll send you some stuff, but you can't, I won't label it. I'll just say, take this and here's how to take it.
Right. Just as long as it gets across the border.
Oh, that's right. The border patrol.
Yeah.
There's no border at my house. We're good.
It's okay. I know a border patrol. Call Paul. Right. Okay. Hey, thanks, man. Let everybody know where they can find you. You're on Instagram as the Guerrilla Chemist.
Yes. So at the Guerrilla Chemist, 2 R's, 2 L's, Chemex Lifestyle. At Chemex Lifestyle is our website, chemexlifestyle.com. So you can see all the products. I make whiteboard videos of all the products that I've made, so I can draw the molecules and show you how they work. I always answer all my DMs, and I always try to make posts that people want to see. So if you have something that you're interested in, just hit me up on Instagram, and I'll try and make a post for you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate your time. I'm glad we made this work.
Yes, I'm glad that we didn't have any technical issues this time. So
no. Show me the hair one more time. We got to go out on a bang. Let's see this. You know,
you can do that with your beard, Dusty. Hey. Get a couple lines on the side there.
There we go. I could do that. I gotta grow it first, longer, and then blue.
Right there.
That's it.
Shout out to Jay for doing my hair. She does all the cool designs that I always get. Jay Devereaux. Nice. Down in Dallas, Texas.
I assumed you had a hair person.
No one does it themselves.
Well, the dyeing I can do myself. It's the different colors that are hard to do, and then the lines I can't do. But I mean, you know, I think we've talked about this. Like I've been dyeing my hair since I was like 12, with like food coloring and stuff. And then when my mom got breast cancer, I started dyeing it pink in October, and then every October since I always have pink. And then I just have been dyeing my hair forever, so I just like doing it. Like I said, while I have it, I got to do something with it.
I got a question for you. Were you a punk rock kid?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's okay. I got it. Now you just opened up another vault.
Yeah.
That's a whole episode.
I had a huge mohawk, like 8-9 inches. I loved punk rock music. Absolutely.
What was your favorite band? What's your favorite band?
My idol was Kurt Cobain, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
But I really liked.
He had that red pink hair at when they did Saturday Night Live there. That famous footage.
Yeah, it was a good look.
Yeah, I like them. I like Rancid a lot. When Rancid,
Rancid live.
Yeah, they're really good live. I saw them too. I saw the Ramones live too. They were badass.
Nice.
So anything can get angry enough to jump around and I love it.
When did you see the Ramones?
In high school. It was Lollapalooza, like 96 or something. I was like 15, something like that. 14.
They were all still alive.
Yeah.
None of them had died yet.
I saw them. It was them, Metallica, Rage Against the Machine, Rancid. It was a huge Lollapalooza. It was awesome. It was like
a fucking awesome show.
15-year-old dream come true. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, well, keep it up, man. We'll have you on again. Okay, yes, thanks, buddy.
Sure.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Ron.
Bryan Moscow, the Guerrilla Chemist. Out.
Later, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Cheers.
Cheers.
Just bodybuilding.
See you, man.
See ya.